Out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Nice advice, Jim. This is David Eastaugh. This is the C86 show. I've been working through some archives recently and thought, why not put them out there? This is an interview I did with Martin Fry from ABC, who was in Norwich a few years ago to play in one of his famous albums, probably Lexicon of Love. So this is the interview. It's unedited, but it's quality chat from start to finish. I hope you enjoy it. This is Martin Fry. Martin, David, take it away.
With ABC, I've just been writing some new songs. I did a show in December last year, which was a full orchestral show.
Was that doing one album?
Performing the Lexicon of Love plus about 9 other big tunes from the ABC
Sure.
sort of back catalogue, with Anne Dudley conducting, and it kind of really, it really inspired me to kind of try and get back in the studio and make another ABC record.
Sure.
You know, in 2014, I imagine, by the time it's finished. So that's been interesting, writing songs again, which I hadn't done for a couple of years. And obviously, the band started many years ago, about 30 years ago. So you go through phases where you tend to play live a lot, and then
Yes.
that's pretty much what I've been doing the last 10 years.
So when you did
An elder statesman of pop.
Yes, well, absolutely. I know. We've all revisited the 80s with Thatcher dying, haven't we, recently?
That was surreal for me. Reading the obituaries and looking at some of the coverage that
Yes.
was taking place. That was very strange, yeah. Being a child of the 80s myself, yeah, I remember distinctively, vividly, 1979, when Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister, living in Sheffield at Park Hill Flats, yeah.
Yeah, yes.
I remember that, definitely. Not that my life's like one of those BBC sort of plays that tries to cover decades,
Yes.
but I definitely remember that as being a sea change, yeah.
Well, it was quite weird because,
My
you know,
little
obviously...
council flat in Sheff.
Yes.
And then...
But then you had your massive debut album, which kind of changed the musical landscape almost.
You know, when I was a kid, I grew up chasing, you know, going to see the Sex Pistols and the Clash and the Jam and the Subway Sex, Susie and the Banshees. I was kind of really into punk rock, but as soon as I was old enough to kind of think about getting into a band, I realised, along with my generation, along with guys like the guys that ended up in Duran Duran or Spandau Ballet or the Human League, The Cure, I suppose Depeche Mode,
Yes.
Dexys. With ABC, our music was very different. It was kind of really frustrating not seeing the Clash on top of the Pops. So, in a way, our stuff was a lot more populist. We wanted to kind of make music that would be popular around the world.
Sure.
This was very much from a point of view of, there was a pop charts full of very old people at the time, and very established kind of acts, and then there was a lot of young bands trying to break in, which is, I guess, the story of rock and roll.
Yes. Well, when you look at the...
So with the Lexicon of Love, that came out that sort of period.
Yeah, because when you look at the Old Grey Whistle Test, you had Whispering Bob Harris, who obviously was really struggling, wanting to play all these kind of bands, you know, very hairy men, you know, with their guitar solos and bass solos and all that kind of stuff. And then he had to introduce these new bands, the punk bands, and his face was absolutely horrified because obviously they were 2-3 minute songs, and he just didn't like it, did he?
Well, you hit the nail on the head there, because that was it. You know, did Whispering Bob like Brian Ferry and Brian Eno and Roxy Music? But when Roxy Music appeared on the Old Grey Whistle Test in all their finery, it was just like a mind-blowing moment. Just as Bowie and Mick Ronson on Lift Off with Aisha and then Top of the Pops, you know, Bowie with his arm around Ronson, this whole glam, truly glam stuff. There was a lot of stuff like Mud and
Gary Glitter
and Slade, but Bowie and Roxy definitely, and Bolan definitely represented a whole new world. And to be a kind of little suburban brat eating your beans on toast, watching telly, and the look on your dad's face when he saw the New York Dolls.
Yes, he wasn't happy, was he?
Ferry in his tuxedo, or you know, Brian Eno. I'm trying to think of some other acts that came along.
Well,
I think
Sparks,
the Ramones.
there was
Sparks
Sparks really
band.
upset
74.
Yes.
This town ain't big enough for both of us. Pajama Rama, Virginia Plain. Starman, you know.
Yes, well, it was 41 years
That's
ago
what it's
that
about.
Starman came out, actually. 41 years ago, this, you know, which
Genius.
is amazing.
Genius.
Yes.
Forget Margaret Thatcher. What about the Bowie exhibition?
Yes, well, I went.
V&A. I've not gone yet.
I went.
I have to go.
I went, and it was mind-blowing.
Was it weird? Did you miss the fact his clothes are there, but he isn't there?
Well, no. What happened was
good?
that I was seeing clothes that I can remember seeing him live in, thinking, God, that's the Glastonbury outfit. That's the one, you know, at Glass Spider, you know, and
red
actually
suit.
it was all there.
Bit
And
boring Glass Spider gig. Went home before the end.
did you? I didn't. I was there. I was there in Berlin, and it was a dreadful
Wembley
album. It was a dreadful.
Stadium.
It was an awful album. It was a dreadful tour, and he hated it, and he burnt the spider in the desert when it finished. And he knew he made a mistake, and then he came and did Tin Machine. So he
Played Tin Machine last week, bus stop. I just thought I've got my vinyl and I played it.
Yes, I know.
It sounds amazingly fresh, Tin Machine. Didn't like it at the time.
Well, the
but
second album's quite nice.
yeah.
So that was quite
But,
interesting.
Yeah, I hitchhiked all the way down to London from Manchester, where I was living as a kid, and saw the Thin White Duke,
Station to station.
station to station tour.
Right.
And bought Isolar, the big magazine, with Bowie and William Burroughs in it.
Yeah, yes.
And took that back to Stockport and walked around,
It was
posing with it.
a life-changing moment. So look, then,
anyway, what's
so
that?
then,
What's
yeah,
your-
so that was a slight diversion. But then, obviously,
Inspiration.
you had Trevor Horn, the great Trevor
Yeah.
Horn production, which defined, in a way, when you watch Top of the Pops in the 80s,
Yeah.
and without the,
I
you know,
wanted to take some of that excitement we were talking about, and definitely that was the flag we wanted to fly in the 1980s when we existed. I used to listen to things like Joni Mitchell and think, how the hell did she do this record? Or, you know, inspiration.
yeah, absolutely.
I do love Steely Dan and all those beardy acts now, of course. But, you know, but it was a war. It was like the guys over there with the leather trousers on and the long hair and the beards, and then us lot.
There was,
It
but
was a war, and that definitely kicks up the best music. Years later, I went to the WAG Club with Mike Pickering and Danny Rampling. They were DJing, and there were some hip-hop DJs there. And there was a fight broke out between the hip-hop guys and the house DJs.
Oh, wow.
And I kind of remember that in 1987 being kind of like, yeah, this is good. This is always leads to
right.
something.
Yes, it was
So-
around the time of Grandmaster Flash. and-
Strong opinions.
Yes, absolutely.
With Trevor Horn, yeah, we'd heard Handheld in Black and White, which Trevor had produced. He was in the Buggles, but it wasn't really. Trevor Horn's a brand now. He wasn't really a brand then. He was like a guy.
Yes,
You know.
the Trevor Horn production
But there was a
sound.
polish and there was like a widescreen
Grandeur.
panoramic grandeur in the Dollar records that we
Yes.
heard. We'd already had a hit with Tears Not Enough, but we wanted to take it a stage further. So
Yeah.
we'd met with a couple of producers. We liked Alex Satkin, did all the Grace Jones stuff. He was a great producer. But they obviously had Sly and Robbie on drums making those records.
You were
Cool.
the rhythm section of our
Stunning.
time.
Stunning.
Yes.
But with Trevor, yeah, met him and hit it off straight away. Yeah, he had a great sense of humour. I didn't really know at the time. He was the lead singer in Yes at the time.
Yes,
He'd done
he
an album
was.
called Tomato. But we met and then played him some songs in a rehearsal room, and just it kind of took it off from there. Next thing, we were recording Poison Arrow.
Sure.
And our philosophy was we wanted to do something that would stand the test of time and would be timeless in a way. And he understood that immediately, and he said, you know, put a clarinet on it then. You don't, you know, we can expand what we're doing
Right.
beyond a 4 or 5 piece band
Sure.
to make the record. And that sort of thinking went into the Lexicon of Love. That's why it sounds kind of polished and
It's big. It's a big sound, isn't
it's
it?
not as big as people think it is, because there wasn't orchestration on every track.
Right.
It's the band plus a few embellishments.
But it's
a
interesting.
few cherries on the
We do
blancmange.
remember it as this big
Yeah.
sound. That was the one that slightly defined it, because it almost like after that album, everybody who was trying to get into Top of the Pops
Yeah.
went for the Trevor Horn sort of sound.
We wanted the drums to sound as big as we possibly could.
Yes.
So we recorded those in a sort of chamber.
Sure.
Yeah. In Poison Arrow, there's the big drum break, but you know, we were definitely
Because
chasing
obviously
that.
you came at the post-punk period, but you must have found yourself being slid into the new romantic
Yeah.
genre with, the,
Yeah.
with people who obviously, talking, you know, of Thatcher again, but, you know, kind of went that way into the world of more kind of Thatcher's Britain. And
You know
did that...
something? Thatcher's Britain is a mythology. It's like saying Cameron's Britain today.
Yes.
You know, you can't. You know, people talk. I read The Economist, and they talked about Margaret Thatcher as the freedom fighter. Well, you know, a friendship with Pinochet was kind of swept under the
Yes.
character. And you know, I'm not somebody that kind of is respect to the old lady. She's gone. the Conservative Party booted her out in 1991, I think.
Yes, that's right.
John Major took over. So, you know, they didn't exactly leave her with a pension, I suppose. She did all right.
She did all right.
She's in the Ritz. She's passed out. But what I'm saying is, look at Britain today. It's not Cameron's Britain, just as it wasn't Thatcher's Britain. But there was a lot of, you know, I mean, living in Sheffield, you know, Orgreave. I remember them closing off the motorway. Driving down the motorway, they've closed it, and police cars and soldiers are going up to battle with the miners. So
yes,
distinctive
well, I
memories.
suppose because of that age,
Rotherham, Barnsley, Sheffield,
Derby.
The mining industry.
The Scargill Thatcher period, we remember it well, because it was kind of, you know, just slightly still in that period, but there was this sort of indie pop and
musically.
Yes,
yeah.
So there was the indie pop world with the sort of John Peel NME,
and
then there was the mainstream with this kind of, and you must have found yourself thinking, you know, spiritually, part of you sort of can relate to that indie pop world, but at the same time, being more suddenly kind of hanging out with the more Duran Duran world. Did that?
Well, yeah, I mean, John Peel played a couple of our records, you know, and he'd phone you up in the afternoon and tell you he was going to play it.
Right.
Indie, the NME, Melody Maker, Record Mirror, that was our stomping ground. And that's how we came to the fore.
Sure.
But the more popular you get, the more people like what you do.
Yeah.
But there wasn't really a big schism, but yeah, I suppose the new romantic stuff, we were kind of like a development out of that, I guess, you know. And I'm very big friends with Steve Strange now, you know. He's somebody who I run into. He's highly entertaining and a lovely guy. I wasn't at Blitz. I wasn't like locked into Blitz. I was up in Manchester or Sheffield.
Sure.
Different climate.
So just fast forwarding right to the... So you're coming to Norwich, obviously, in a couple of weeks' time. And what are we going to expect on that?
Well, we've been playing a lot of shows all around the world, so the venue's stunning. So I wanted to come and play.
Yeah.
So come to the show. I mean, it's like kind of... it's great playing contemporary songs, but I've got to play Poison Arrow and The Look of Love and All of My Heart when Smokey sings the big hits.
Yeah.
But the band's been quite active in recent years, so yeah, it's kind of interesting balancing the nostalgia with the contemporary side of things.
Yeah.
It's important. And
what is it like to still play those songs from 30 years ago? Do you still do your spoken word introduction?
Do you mean on The Look of Love there was a space? Yeah, I like the way James Brown would always name check himself, and Iggy Pop would name check himself on Turn Blue. Yes. James Brown does it. I'll throw out all these records. I love James Brown.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I got the chance to name check myself.
Yeah. So is it full on, you know, sort of suit?
Oh, yeah.
The whole business.
It's not t-shirt and jeans. No, it's not cut-offs. It's and flip-flops. Havianas. I left those in Rio.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, no. No, it's a cosmopolitan slant on things. Yeah.
Right. So. And do you sort of, obviously you're still looking very well, you know.
Time.
You know, being someone who sort of had that amazing period in the 80s, how do you sort of keep yourself emotionally together? Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, how do you do it?
Listen, if you think about it, the population of Britain, you turn any corner, there's going to be somebody that had a top 40 hit somewhere along the lines. So I've always thought it'd be great to open a hotel or perhaps a retreat for people to work out what to do afterwards.
Yes.
Like a sort of, you know, you could have conference centre and kind of, it would be like a therapeutic spa type hotel. What's the word for that? Not an asylum.
Not an asylum, but there's something.
No, joking aside.
But how do you cope with it?
You know, I had a wonderful run of 10 years making records, and I got to kind of the mid 90s, and I thought, oh yeah, there's Prodigy, Blur,
right?
You know, Pulp. I am an irrelevance. You know what I mean? I love music.
Yeah.
You realise and then you stick around and people go, what, you're still here? But then you wait a few more weeks and they go, you are now an elder statesman of pop. So I got a doctorate of music from Sheffield University.
Oh, that must be nice.
And I went back to my old stomping ground where I used to walk around with my fanzine.
Excellent.
So, I don't know, life is good.